You've tried everything to make the anxiety stop. Deep breathing, meditation apps, positive affirmations, telling yourself it's not real, it's not rational, there's nothing to be afraid of, and still it comes. In the middle of meetings, while you're driving, at night when you should be sleeping, in moments that should feel safe, but somehow feel like standing on the edge of a cliff. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your mind floods with worst case scenarios you can't turn off. And underneath it all is a question you're afraid to ask out loud. What if this never goes away? What if I'm always going to be like this? You've probably been told that anxiety is something to manage, to cope with, to control through the right techniques, the right medication, the right mindset. But what if everything you've been taught about anxiety is backwards? What if the reason nothing has worked isn't because you're doing it wrong, but because you've been trying to solve the wrong problem? According to Dr. Gabor Maté, anxiety isn't the enemy. It's not a malfunction. It's not proof that your brain is broken. It's a messenger. And the moment you stop trying to silence it and start listening to what it's actually trying to tell you, everything changes. For most of your life, you've probably seen anxiety as the problem, as something foreign, intrusive, wrong, something that happens to you, uninvited, unwanted, ruining moments that should be simple. And so you've declared war on it. You've tried to push it down, breathe it away, think your way out of it. You've Googled how to stop anxiety instantly. You've downloaded the apps, read the books, practiced the exercises. Some of them help, for a moment, for an hour, maybe for a day. But then it comes back, sometimes worse than before. Because here's what no one tells you. You can't win a war against your own nervous system. And that's what anxiety is. It's not a thought problem. It's not an irrational fear you can logic your way out of. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you. The problem is, it's protecting you from dangers that no longer exist. And until you understand that, until you see anxiety not as an enemy, but as a part of you that's trying desperately to keep you safe, you'll keep fighting a battle you were never meant to win. According to Gabor Maté, anxiety isn't random. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not a chemical imbalance that descended on you for no reason. It's a response, a learned response, and it learned very early that the world is not safe. Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were unpredictable, where you never knew which version of your parent you'd get when you walked through the door. So your nervous system learned to scan, to monitor, to stay alert. Because if you could see it coming, the anger, the withdrawal, the tension, maybe you could prevent it, or at least brace for it. That's not anxiety, that's adaptation. Maybe you grew up in a home where your needs were dismissed, where asking for help was met with irritation or neglect. So your nervous system learned that depending on others is dangerous, that you have to handle everything yourself, that asking for support means being a burden. Now, decades later, you can't delegate, you can't rest, you lie awake at night, running through everything you need to do, because your system believes if you stop, everything will collapse. That's not generalized anxiety disorder. That's a nervous system that learned it's alone. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where you were praised for achieving and ignored for simply existing. So your nervous system learned that your worth is tied to performance, that rest equals failure, that if you're not constantly proving your value, you'll be discarded. No, you can't turn off. You can't say no. The anxiety spikes every time you stop moving because stopping feels like becoming worthless. That's not a work addiction. That's a child who learned they had to earn the right to be loved. And here's the part that changes everything. Your anxiety isn't malfunctioning. It's functioning exactly as it was programmed to. It's doing what it learned to do in an environment where vigilance, control, and performance were survival strategies. The problem is, your nervous system doesn't know the environment has changed. It's still operating from the same threat assessment it made when you were 5 or 10 or 15. It still believes that letting your guard down means danger, that trusting others means abandonment, that resting means catastrophe. So it keeps sounding the alarm. every day in situations that objectively aren't dangerous. And you keep wondering why you can't just relax, why you can't be like other people who seem to move through life without this constant undercurrent of dread. But you're not other people. You're someone whose nervous system was shaped by an environment that required hypervigilance to survive. And that system is still trying to protect you the only way it knows how. So, what do you do with that? How do you change a response that's been wired into your body for decades? This is where most anxiety advice fails you, because it treats anxiety as the problem to be eliminated. So it gives you tools to suppress it, distract from it, manage it. But Gabor Maté offers a radically different approach. Don't fight the anxiety. Relate to it differently. Because anxiety isn't your enemy. It's a part of you that's terrified and is trying to tell you something. The tightness in your chest, that's your body bracing for impact. The racing thoughts, that's your mind trying to predict and prevent every possible threat. The need to control everything, that's a system that learned chaos is dangerous and control equals safety. None of that is irrational. It's deeply, achingly rational. It made perfect sense once, in the environment you grew up in. The work isn't to make it stop. The work is to help your nervous system realize that the danger has passed. And that doesn't happen through breathing exercises alone. It happens through experience. Here's what that looks like in practice. The next time anxiety shows up, and it will, instead of trying to make it go away, try this. Pause. Notice where you feel it in your body. Is it your chest, your stomach, your throat? Don't try to change it, just notice it. And then, instead of asking, how do I make this stop? Ask, what is this trying to protect me from? Maybe you're about to have a difficult conversation. And your anxiety is convinced that speaking your truth will result in rejection. Because the last time you were honest, you weren't safe. Maybe you're resting, and your anxiety is screaming that you should be doing something productive. Because the last time you stopped performing, you were treated as if you had no value. Maybe you're in a relationship that's actually healthy, but your anxiety keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because the last time you trusted someone, they left. Your anxiety isn't wrong. It's just operating from old information. And the way you update that information isn't by suppressing the anxiety. It's by doing the thing it's trying to prevent and surviving it. You set the boundary your anxiety says will destroy the relationship, and the relationship doesn't end. You rest even though your anxiety insists you haven't earned it, and the world doesn't collapse. You let yourself be seen even though your anxiety promises you'll be rejected, and you're not. Every single time you do this, you're giving your nervous system new data. Data that says, I was vulnerable and I survived. I set a limit and I wasn't abandoned. I rested and I'm still worthy. At first, your system won't believe it. It will treat each instance as a fluke, an exception, a temporary reprieve before the inevitable disaster. But if you keep going, if you keep choosing courage over comfort, authenticity over safety, presence over control, your nervous system will slowly begin to recalibrate. The anxiety won't disappear overnight. This isn't a magic cure. This isn't a technique you can do once and be healed. But over time, the intensity will lessen, the duration will shorten, the grip will loosen. Not because you conquered your anxiety, but because you taught your body through lived experience that it doesn't need to protect you from everything anymore. But here's the truth no one wants to hear. You can't think your way out of anxiety. You can understand it intellectually. You can know logically that you're safe now, that the people who hurt you are gone, that you're an adult with resources and choices. But your body doesn't speak the language of logic. It speaks the language of experience. And until your body has the felt experience of safety, not just the concept of it, but the actual sensation of it in your nervous system, the anxiety will persist. This is why cognitive techniques alone often fall short. You can challenge your anxious thoughts. You can reframe them, rationalize them, replace them with positive ones. But if your nervous system is still in a state of threat, the thoughts will keep coming. Because the thoughts aren't the source of the anxiety, they're the symptom. The source is a nervous system that learned very early that the world is dangerous and you are alone in it. And healing that requires more than changing your thoughts. It requires changing your lived experience of the world. So, what does that actually look like? It looks like building safety into your body, not just your mind. It looks like practices that help your nervous system downregulate, not once in a while, but consistently. For some people, that's somatic therapy, working with a practitioner who understands how trauma lives in the body and knows how to help you release it. For some, it's movement, not exercise for fitness, but movement for regulation, dancing, shaking, yoga, anything that lets your body discharge the energy it's been holding. For some, it's connection, safe, attuned relationships where you can be seen without having to perform, where your nervous system can finally learn that being vulnerable doesn't equal being abandoned. For some, it's nature, time and environments where your system can rest, where there are no demands, no performance, no need to be anything other than present. And for everyone, it's boundaries. Because if you're constantly overriding your limits, saying yes when you mean no, staying in situations that drain you, tolerating behaviors that harm you, your nervous system will never feel safe. It will keep sounding the alarm because it knows on some level that you're abandoning yourself, and a system that's being abandoned cannot rest. This is the part where anxiety work gets uncomfortable because it stops being about managing symptoms and starts being about changing your life. It asks you to look at the relationships you're in and ask, do these feel safe or do they feel familiar? It asks you to look at your job, your commitments, your daily routines and ask, is this sustainable? Or am I running myself into the ground to prove I'm worthy? It asks you to look at the way you talk to yourself and ask, would I talk to someone I love this way? Or am I repeating the voice of someone who hurt me? And those questions don't have easy answers. Because often the life you've built is the life your anxiety told you to build. The one where you're needed, useful, indispensable. Where you never stop, never rest, never ask for help. The one where you're hypervigilant, always preparing, always preventing, always one step ahead of disaster. That life feels safe because it's what you know. It's what your nervous system was built for. But it's not actually safe. It's exhausting. And at some point, you have to decide, do I want to keep living this way? Or am I ready to build a different kind of life? Here's what Gabor Maté would tell you. The anxiety is not the enemy. The anxiety is the teacher. It's showing you in real time where you're abandoning yourself, where you're staying small to stay safe, where you're performing instead of being. And if you can listen to it, really listen, it will guide you back to yourself. Not to the self you think you should be, not to the self that's acceptable or impressive or easy to love, but to the self you actually are, underneath all the adaptation, underneath all the conditioning, underneath all the years of learning to be someone else. That self is still there, waiting. And the anxiety, paradoxically, is the thing trying to protect it. Because every time your anxiety spikes, it's because some part of you is being asked to compromise, to perform, to abandon your truth, to keep the peace. And your nervous system is saying, no, not again. I won't let you abandon yourself anymore. That's not a malfunction. That's self-preservation. And once you see it that way, the anxiety becomes something different. Not an enemy to defeat, but a part of you that's scared and needs to be met with compassion, not contempt. So here's the practice. The next time anxiety shows up, don't push it away. Don't try to fix it, control it, or make it stop. Just pause, put your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, notice your breath, and say, either out loud or in your mind, I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me. Thank you. It will feel awkward at first, maybe even ridiculous. But you're doing something revolutionary. You're treating your anxiety as a part of you, not an invader. And that shift from fighting it to befriending it is the beginning of everything. Because when you stop treating your anxiety as the enemy, you stop treating yourself as broken. And when you stop seeing yourself as broken, you can finally start asking the questions that matter. Not what's wrong with me, but what am I afraid will happen if I stop performing? If I rest? if I trust, if I let myself be seen? Those questions don't have quick answers, but they're the right questions. And asking them is the beginning of real change. Over time, as you practice this, as you listen to your anxiety instead of silencing it, as you honor your limits instead of overriding them, as you choose authenticity over acceptance, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't disappear, but it becomes quieter, less frequent, less consuming, because your nervous system is learning slowly that it doesn't have to be on high alert anymore, that you're finally paying attention, that you're finally protecting the parts of you it was trying so desperately to protect. You'll have moments where you set a boundary and the anxiety doesn't come, where you rest and don't feel guilty, where you're seen and don't feel the need to hide. And in those moments, you'll realize this is what safety feels like. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of trust. Trust that you can handle whatever comes. Trust that you're allowed to take up space. Trust that you don't have to earn your right to exist. That trust doesn't happen all at once. It's built gradually through thousands of small choices. Choices to honor yourself instead of abandoning yourself. To listen to your body instead of overriding it. To be honest instead of acceptable. And every single one of those choices is an act of healing. Here's the truth about anxiety that no one tells you. It's not something you master. It's something you integrate. You learn to live with it, listen to it, let it inform you without letting it control you. You stop seeing it as evidence of weakness and start seeing it as evidence of a nervous system that's been working overtime to keep you alive. And you honor that, you thank it, and you gently, slowly teach it that it can rest now, that the danger is past, that you're not that child anymore, that you're strong enough now to protect yourself in ways you couldn't before. And your nervous system slowly will believe you, not because you convinced it with logic, but because you proved it through action, through boundaries, through rest, through choosing yourself again and again, even when it's hard. That's the secret that actually works. Not a technique, not a hack, not a quick fix, but a relationship with yourself, with your body, with the part of you that's been scared for so long. And when you build that relationship, when you stop fighting and start listening, everything changes. Not overnight, not perfectly, not without setbacks, but deeply, truly, in ways that last. So here's my question for you. What's your anxiety trying to protect you from right now? What would it say if you let it speak? Share in the comments. Not because you need to have the answer, but because naming it even once is an act of listening. And if this resonated, if it gave you a different way to see your anxiety, consider subscribing, because there's more where this came from. This work, the work of understanding yourself, of building safety in your nervous system, of coming home to who you really are, is not a one-time thing. It's a practice, a commitment, a daily choice to meet yourself with curiosity instead of criticism. And you're worth that effort. Your anxiety has been trying to tell you that for years. Maybe it's time to finally listen.